God damn it, how do I turn this camera on? Hold on. So I really like The Social Network. Alright, yeah, I'm taking that off. Directed by David Fincher and based off The Accidental Billionaires, The Social Network is a biographical film depicting Mark Zuckerberg and his rise to fame as the founder of Facebook, one of the most popular social media platforms in the world today. The movie delves into the origin, development, and evolution of the infamous website, jumping in between different time frames. Funny enough, I saw this movie in the beginning of the year, and I'm so glad I did. Now I know how to run a multi-billion-dollar company because a girl broke up with me. But really, this movie is fantastic. You might as well just look at the awards list it has. The Social Network was nominated for Best Picture and Best Director at the Academy Awards in 2011, but walked away with Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Film Editing, and Best Original Score. Jesus Christ, they have a whole page of awards for this movie. Besides the point, the movie's reputation and success has lingered itself for the past 11 years and still continues to be influential today. However, as my dad and I finished watching the film, he brought up an interesting point. Why did this movie work? Now, what exactly do I mean by that? Imagine this. You pitch an idea for a movie to be directed that has no fight sequences, no CGI explosions, no big $100 million budget, and it's all dialogue. While movies like 12 Angry Men have done this in the past, modern cinema now has become jam-packed with all different movie franchises that rely on over-the-top action. For instance, the MCU with their movies and whatever the hell the Fast and the Furious is gonna do. I don't wanna die! So allow me to answer this big question. How does The Social Network remain influential and popular despite lacking the elements of the big-budget popular movie today? The script. Alright, thank you so much for watching. That's the end of my video essay. I hope I get 100. Please, I'll do anything. Please, please, please. Okay, I'm obviously joking. But there's certainly an element of the script that makes this movie enjoyable. The satire from the characters. Now normally, when describing humorous parts of a movie, I would use words like comedy or humor. However, The Social Network demonstrates a lot of the characters insulting one another in a laughable way.
I get a Glock and kill you.
You must really hate the Winklevosses.
I don't hate anybody. The Winklevi aren't suing me.
Misappropriation.
And
Yes, sir.
punch me in the face. Go ahead.
Not only do multiple people in this movie make fun of others, they also have quippy lines that boost their morals.
I'm 6'5", 220, and there's two of me.
Ma'am, I know you've done your homework, and so you know that money isn't a big part of my life, but at the moment I could buy Mount Auburn Street, take the Phoenix Club, and turn it into my ping pong room.
Sir, I honestly don't think you're in any position to make that call.
I was the U.S. Treasury Secretary. I'm in some position to make that call.
Clearly, Aaron Sorkin knows what he's doing when orienting moments into the film to make the audience laugh. And the thing is, that is what keeps the audience entertained and enjoyed. Modern examples of this nowadays are the MCU. While it is mainly action, the stars they have employed are comedians like Paul Rudd, Chris Pratt, and Bradley Cooper playing a goddamn raccoon. I'll get back to these jokes later as I want to move on to something that does catch my eye. The cinematography of this film. The first time watching this movie, I didn't pay much attention to the camera movement. I was mostly focused on how hot two Army Hammers were. And the second time around, as I was ready to take notes, I was ready for this film to have slow camera movement and have slow cuts. I don't know which part of my brain thought this, because right away I was surprised to see a lot of jump cuts in the very first scene.
How do you distinguish yourself in a population of people who all got 1,600 on their SATs?
I didn't know they take SATs in China.
They don't. I wasn't talking about China anymore. I was talking about me.
You got a 1,600?
Yes, I could sing in an acapella group, but I can't
Does that
sing.
mean you actually got nothing
I could
wrong?
row crew or invent a $25 PC.
Or you get into a final club?
Or I get into a final clip.
You know how action movies nowadays are all quick-paced with their camera movement? The Social Network has that same kind of camera work, except there's no fighting. It shouldn't work, yet it somehow does. It's like a fight scene from the Jason Bourne series, only with talking and people insulting each other. Speaking of insulting people, Mark Zuckerberg. Another thing that catches my attention with the cinematography, the camera's attention to Mark. For instance, when the camera is on Mark, it is still. It doesn't move, it stays in place. However, there are moments where the camera does move on Mark, but rarely in the film does this happen. This happens because the camera movement reflects Mark's mental state. When the camera is still, Mark is focused, calm, and kept to himself. He's thinking ahead to what he wants to do. However, when the camera is moving with him, he's frantic and emotional. Something happened to him that shouldn't have happened, and he's upset. In fact, while it doesn't relate to Mark, the longest camera moving shot of this movie is when Eduardo finds out that he's being pushed out of the company. It's the most upset any character is in this movie, and, well, Eduardo explains for himself. While the cinematography certainly explains Mark's emotions, there's also another factor that determines his attitude. The music. The Social Network's music is unique considering other film scores nowadays have triumphant music and lots of brass. However, the composers behind this movie, Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor, mainly incorporate piano, violin, and distorted bass. While the violin is nearly present for the music in this movie, I want to focus more on the piano and bass. Like the cinematography, these two are utilized depending on Mark's mood. The piano is played whenever Mark is at a low. For instance, the piano plays right as Mark is walking back to his dorm after being broken up with. However, on that same walk, the following can be heard. This moment right here is when Mark decides to make facemash.com, and it shows how scheming he really is. If you need more proof about this correlation, look at this scene when he walks out of his class after being called a dick.
Few pages are reserved for hardware flags, etc. Assume page table entries have 8 status bits. The 8 status bits would then be... Anybody? And I see we have our first surrender.
And then, the bass note when a particular set of hunks appear.
Mark? You Mark Zuckerberg?
Yeah.
It's interesting to note that these two instruments convey different feelings. The piano sounds delightful, content, and overall positive, but the bass sounds dark, brooding, and negative. The piano is heard when Mark is hurt, but the bass is heard when he lingers closely to his eventual success. So why does this happen? Well, like Mark, every character is an asshole. Well, I wouldn't say that, but they're all definitely unlikable. For instance, the Winklevoss twins are privileged, grew up rich, leading them to be arrogant and pretentious. Sean is lousy, wild, and tends to party with underage girls. Overall, not a guy you should be hanging around with. Going back to the quips the characters use, you can see that they insult one another and boost their morale, showing their selfish and unlikable tendencies. Anyway, then there's the case of the one and only Eduardo. Eduardo does seem to be the shining light in this movie's cast of unlikable people, but while watching this movie, I had a deep hatred for him. Why? He's a wuss. It sounds disrespectful, I know, but he gets pushed around all the time. Mark uses him, and we, the audience, are plainly aware of that. The introduction of him is getting called to Mark's dorm at 2 in the morning to give Mark the equation for face mash. Eduardo is used for Mark's own gain. Funny enough, Eduardo is the one who got into the prestigious Phoenix Club, the one who funded the website, and the guy who just wanted to launch a business with his best friend. Yet he really needs to learn how to gain confidence and stand up for himself. That is why Eduardo makes me mad. I believe why these characters are unlikable is to limit the focus of this movie. We should be focused on one character only, Mark. The focus is on him as a way to not pay attention to other characters that are more empathetic. But there are 2 exceptions to all the characters being unlikable, Erica Albright and Marilyn Delpy. These 2 are significant because their roles are important in the beginning of the movie and in the end. In the beginning, Erica sets off the eventual path for Mark to create Facebook because she describes him with one simple phrase.
It'll be because you're an asshole.
However, compare this first scene to the final scene, with Mark at the height of his success, finally about to overcome his lawsuit with Eduardo. Marilyn then states this to Mark.
You're not an asshole, Mark. You're just trying so hard to be.
Coming from the 2 characters who don't come off as an asshole, Marilyn and Erica show how the story effectively opens and closes, by showing the unexpected growth of Mark Zuckerberg. Throughout this film, Mark has been getting his way despite his selfish tendencies and his mean personality towards his friends and peers. We want to see him fail, and we know that we can pay attention to other characters because they have their flaws too. The music reaffirms that he's a bad person because of the dark music surrounding his success and the happy music when he's failing. However, it's at the end that we realize Mark has lost. He runs a company formed upon lawsuits and broken friendships. Turns out he was more human than he let on, as a friend from Maryland. On top of the satire from the characters keeping the audience laughing, and the quick jump cuts like in modern action movies, we have the perfect plot for 21st century film viewers. But I cannot end this video here. As I worked throughout this project, I realized how much this movie truly meant to me. To me, I could rewatch this movie over and over and still be amazed at the detail, script, acting, and so much more. The use of cinematography and music is so astonishing, and now I know how this movie has been declared one of the best of the century. It's special to me because it made me realize something about myself. I want to create stories like this. I always pondered what I want to do in the future, but this movie gave me something to do. I want to write, I know that, but writing screenplays or stories of my own on the big screen felt like such a difficult task. But seeing how much this movie accomplished, that idea seemed more realistic than ever, and I want to pursue it. I want to go beyond what a movie can do, and that's more than just typing words. I want to describe tales of various themes to make the audiences feel engaged and compelled. This goes without saying, but Aaron Sorkin is the primary factor here, and after seeing this and the Trial of the Chicago 7, I want to be like him. In conclusion, The Social Network uses its cinematography, music, characters, and satire to keep it interesting and engaging, explaining how this movie remains influential and successful to this day. In addition, this film makes me want to pursue writing and creating stories for movies. After seeing the hard work and dedication to this project, I found what I want to do in my life. Thank you for watching, and I apologize for getting a bit too personal. But I did say that I really like this movie.